Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar, run through the weather warnings as we do have yellow rain and wind warnings in force for tomorrow for more heavy rain and some gusty winds. We'll have a look at the UKV for the precipitation and temperature over the next 5 days, have a look at the heavy rain pushing through today, tomorrow and the next few days as we generally do have unsettled westerly conditions, and then we'll have a look at the longer range, look at the GFS, GM, Eastern WF and the Ensembles as it continues to look likely, at least for the first week or two of November, to remain fairly mild and westerly with typical autumnal conditions, average, maybe slightly above average temperatures, but with a lot of rain and stronger winds. Now we have though been hinting at a colder second half of the month, as we have alluded to in the winter look-aheads, and we saw yesterday with some big rocking from the GFS, and that has continued today from the GFS with quite a large Scandinavian high building today. Very interesting seeing that in the extended range of the run, but at least in the sort of reliable time frame, it does, I must say, remain westerly. So any colder weather, if it was going to arrive, is not going to be arriving in the next 10 to 14 days. It's beyond that. For the time being, we've got a pretty positive NAO and AO, meaning westerly winds are very, very likely, but it could change towards the second half of the month. That's what we've been seeing on the longer range models, and it's starting to appear on the more shorter range models in their extended range. The GM and the Eastern WF don't really go cold in the longer term, but they try to build pressure to our north, so again could be hinting perhaps at some higher pressure blocking in around 10 to 14 days time, so toward the middle of the month. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. So you start on the live radar, you can see it's another very unsettled way with big areas of heavy rain pushing in from the west at the moment. Some heavy, blustery, thundery showers there, especially in the south and the east at the moment, moving through southeast England, Kent, London, Essex and East Anglia. Very, very horrible conditions under some of these very heavy, thundery cells, but they are moving through quite quickly in this blustery west to southwesterly wind, and some areas are going to see quite a lot of heavy rain over the course of this afternoon into this evening as these westerly flows push in. Just a very unstable flow, and of course in these areas it's going to keep it relatively cool as well, with a thicker cloud and rain holding those temperatures down. Again, if we do look at those 2 metre temperatures around 1:30 as I'm recording this, again you can see where we have those showers moving. You can see areas of blues through the Midlands there. We have some heavier showers earlier today and through the London area as well, holding those temperatures down. Best conditions are the far east into East Anglia, but it's not going to get much milder than that once the showers arrive, and across northern England where we do have drier conditions, but it is widely cooling down. Again, it's been very, very mild recently. It's going to remain fairly mild, but nowhere near as warm as you could say as the last couple of weeks have been. Temperatures back towards the low to mid-teens maybe, feeling cooler under the rain and the cloud. Now, if we do go over to the weather warnings, you can see tomorrow we have yellow rain and wind warnings. If we do have a look at the rain warning, it's from 8 a.m. until 3 p.m. tomorrow. Heavy rain may cause travel disruption and in a few places flooding. Again, 20-30 millimetres could fall with some very heavy rain, and again, high likelihood lower end of the impacts. If you have a look at the second rain warning from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. tomorrow, maybe 30 to 40 millimetres there. And again, if we have a look at the wind warning, again, from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. tomorrow, and you can see warning extended northeast to allow the strongest gusts to the lee of high ground and end time extended. 55 to 65 miles per hour could be seen, and yeah, just generally very strong winds over the course of the next 24 to 36 hours. Now, if you go to the UKV and have a look at this in detail, what the UKV is showing for the precipitation, the temperatures, and the wind gusts over the course of the next 5 days. Now, you can see all that rain moving through today. It is quite a bit more extensive in reality than the UKV is making it out to be, but you can see it continues all evening, really not subsiding much until post midnight. But there, heavier rain is into northern England where it's been dry through the day. Beyond that, into Wednesday, you can see more heavier rain pushing in from the west, and this is why we've got those warnings. Very, very heavy rain pushing in. Squally rain there, bit of a line convection, squall line developing potentially there through parts of Wales. And as we head through Wednesday evening, eventually does clear southwards and eastwards, turning slightly dry behind, but still quite a few heavier showers pushing in. And it remains very unsettled with loads of bouts of precipitation. Friday, maybe a slightly drier day in between air masses there, in between low pressure systems. We can see we're actually not too bad. A few showers, but nothing too crazy. And into Saturday, starts to turn very horrible from the mid-afternoon, perhaps with heavier rain pushing in, but at least for the morning it could be slightly dry. But yeah, big weather front pushing in, not too heavy in terms of precipitation, but quite widespread. And eventually Sunday looks maybe slightly dry, but again more blustery showers pushing in. If we do have a good wind gusts over the next 36 hours or so, you can see this afternoon they're not too bad. Along the south coast could still be quite strong because of the of those thundery downpours, but it's tomorrow where those wind gusts could be very strong. Look at that, 60, 70, maybe even the isolated 75 to 80 miles per hour could be seen, but generally very strong winds, and yeah, could be some disruption with it. Again, it's nowhere near enough for a named storm or anything like that, and of course the yellow warnings are large, but they're not huge widespread warnings, but it still could be disruptive. So if you are in the areas of northern England, parts of Wales, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, and parts of southern Scotland, please do take care. If you run the Irish sea coast, they're the areas that are going to see the strongest and most dangerous winds. So please do take the necessary precautions to keep yourself safe. Now, if we do look at the max temperatures over the next 5 days as well, you can see this afternoon those temperatures potentially rising as high as maybe 14 or 15 in the far east, but widely low teens, maybe high single digits because of that rain and cloud. Into tomorrow, those temperatures overnight will drop to mid-single digits, and by the afternoon could be 14 degrees, maybe the isolated 15. So not too bad for this time of year, but not going to feel all too warm under the rain and cloud. Into Thursday, overnight temperatures dropping away to the mid-single digits, maybe even colder, of course, in Scotland, maybe a frost potentially there. And into Thursday afternoon, temperatures rising to maybe 10 to 12 degrees, so quite a cool day. And Friday, which we alluded to, could be the best day of the week in terms of precipitation. It's feeling pretty cool, 10, 11 degrees max temperature, so yeah, quite cold there. And yeah, not looking particularly great. And into Saturday, look at that. Real cool temperatures, 3, 4, 5 degrees overnight, and in the afternoon could see temperatures rise as high as 10 to 12 degrees, so not great either there. So yeah, looking really not too great in Saturday, so we'll have to see exactly what happens with that. But for the time being, yeah, it looks like it's turning cooler this week. Nothing crazy cold, but quite unsettled with that. It could be quite a miserable week for many. Friday, which looks like quite a dry day widely at the moment, it's going to be quite a cool day. So I think we'd rather cooler weather but drier weather than milder weather and wetter weather. So Friday may be your best bet if you want to do anything outdoors this week, but of course there will be times to dodge the rain. It's just unfortunately there's going to be repeated bouts of heavy showers, thundery showers, and persistent bands at times. So yeah, it's going to all be about dodging those precipitation bands. The best way to know when rain's on your way is not only checking up on the videos, of course, and what we're seeing on the UKV here, but also just to keep an eye on the live radar if you want imminent patterns, especially in a day like today where we've got a lot of blustery showers around. The models do struggle to pick up exactly their extent, exact positioning. The best way to know is to look on the live radar, whether it's from the Weather Channel, Net Weather, Met Office. Go onto one of those websites or apps and you'll be able to see where the positioning of showers are and where they're moving. That's the best way to know if rain is on its way to you. So we now do have a look at the GFS operational run today and see what's happening here. As we said at the start of the video, extensive blocking is appearing on this run today, so very interesting seeing that. And if we do run through, you can see again northerly winds for a time, perhaps later this week. That's slightly cooler air mass. That's why Friday and Saturday could be quite cool but drier before eventually low pressure plunges back in for the weekend through bonfire night. Could be quite unsettled. Some areas will see rain, some areas could avoid it, so we'll just have to see what happens with that. And generally beyond that, you can see that big Scandinavian high developing at day 10. Now that's the pattern that the GM and the Eastern Blue Air get to, where it's a very strong southerly wind, big blues over Greenland, and you'd think this is very mild setup, and it actually is. But watch what happens to the Scandinavian high. It starts to battle against the tropospheric polar vortex, and it wins out, and we see easterly winds. Now, it's not ridiculously cold. It does go temporarily slightly colder, but it would produce some very unsettled, look at the AM50 HP temperatures, very cold air is just to our east. that very cold air just to our east. Again, potential equivalent temperature, very, very cold air spreading through Eastern Europe and Scandinavia, could be on its way to the UK, but this is in the extended range, as I said. So you can see how we can go from a very, very mild pattern to a very cold pattern in the space of about 3 or 4 days. So this is something we do need to keep an eye on. This is the blocking pattern that we've continually seen cropping up on our longer range look-aheads, winter look-aheads, and recently on some of our videos. We are now seeing this sort of Scandinavian high developing. Again, we need those winds to veer more from an east to northeasterly to see anything cold, but this sort of pattern could produce something cold, but it also could produce some very, very unsettled conditions in terms of rain and winds, because if we get these lows, these cut-off lows just sat over the top of us, it can spiral in an awful amount of rain over a number of days. So we've got to keep an eye on this, not only for cold weather, but for sustained unsettled weather as well. So it could put a real spanner in the works into the second half of November. So it is something to keep an eye on. Yes, the next week to 10 days looks incredibly mild. The first half of November looks pretty mild and unsettled. But it's the second half where our eyes are on for any potential colder weather with the potential for blocking. Now, if you go to the GEM, see how that does compare to day 10. Of course, we're not expecting anything majorly cold here because it can only go out to day 10. And you can see generally a westerly flow in the next couple of weeks. But watch what happens at day 10. We see that southerly push, high pressure trying to move towards Scandinavia. Perhaps not quite moving it as much. And again, if we saw this in isolation and didn't have that GFS run to it, compare it to, you'd think this is just a very warm, balmy, southerly, very warm air mass pushing in. But having seen what we saw with the GFS day 10, GFS pushes this up towards Scandinavia, this higher pressure. So perhaps, could that be happening on the GEM as well today? Again, just got to keep an eye on it. For the time being, though, the next 10 days does look very mild and very unsettled in general. This would actually go drier at day 10 with high pressure building in, but would be on that mild side as well. But if we did develop those very if we did develop that blocking at day 14, day 15, then we could be seeing a month really of two halves. Again, we need to keep an eye on it. It still could change, but it is following on from what we have seen in the winter look-aheads. And of course, I think within the next week or two, we can have a real firm idea on whether those winter look-aheads that we've been doing have been right. In terms of blocking, of course, blocking does not guarantee cold weather, but it is a route to cold weather this time of year. So we'll have to see. And again, I think we'll be able to know if that verifies in the next week or two, whether we do see some big blocking patterns starting to appear in the 10 to 14 day output within the next week or two. Of course, it's appearing in the GFS, but we need to see it appearing in more of the Ensemble members and the other runs as well before we can say definitively we are seeing a blocking signal for the second half of the month. Now, if we have a look at the ECMWF, see how that does compare. Again, a westerly flow at the moment, continuing very westerly, very unsettled, and again, very similar to day 10 with a southerly wind, high pressure moving towards Scandinavia, extremely similar to the GEM and the GFS. But of course, can't go beyond day 10 to see what happens. But it is a southerly, balmy southerly at day 10. 10-degree isotherm moving in, but I wouldn't be surprised if you ran this on another couple of days, we start to pull in some cooler easterly winds with higher pressure building in. So again, you've got to keep an eye on this all. Very interesting chart showing up at the moment in the longer range, but of course it's all sceptical because it is so far out. The reliable time frame though looks very mild and unsettled, pretty much conditions that I don't think a lot of people are going to be wanting. Of course, I think a lot of people would rather it be slightly colder and drier than have this relentless sort of wind and rain that looks likely over the next sort of couple of weeks. Now, after you finish the video by having a look at the ensembles and see what they're showing over the next couple of weeks, again, generally around or below average over the next few days, and then above average towards the middle of the month. So generally much above average from around the 6th, 7th of November to around the 15th before we do trend perhaps more towards average. But of course, we're not expecting any cold weather within this. The GFS, which had a very interesting pattern, doesn't even go cold. So again, look at these age 50 HPA temperatures for exact patterns is very, very difficult, but the general theme is for average to above average in the longer term, slightly below average in the shorter term, and plenty of precipitation. Again, you can see where we've got some persistent spikes, that's where we've got weather fronts moving in, but also there will be showers between that convection that the ensemble members don't quite pick up on. Again, we just got to keep an eye on what happens over the next few weeks, but the next 10 to 14 days does look pretty mundane. rain or autumnal conditions. It's beyond that where anything interesting could be happening. So if anyone's saying to you cold weather is definitely coming, they're wrong. The potential is there in the second half of the month. We're seeing hints of it in the winter look-aheads. We're seeing hints of it now within some of the shorter range models. So I do think there is an opportunity for something colder and more interesting towards the second half of the month. And we're seeing, as I said, hints of it, but anything definitive, we're not seeing anything definitive of it yet. So the only definitive we're seeing is pretty mild and unsettled westerlies for the next week or two. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.